We are going to get started. Welcome to our May 2026 Dysgraphia Life webinar. I am thrilled today to be able to introduce Samantha Goldman. Samantha Goldman is an assistant research professor and the co-principal investigator of Project AI Score at the University of Kansas, where she specializes in instructional design, technology, and innovation. Her research focuses on leveraging existing, emerging, and innovative technologies, including AI, with evidence-based practices and high-quality instruction to improve writing outcomes for students with disabilities and struggling learners. And my colleague Amy had the opportunity to see Samantha speak at the Learning Disabilities Association of America conference and loved the talk and thought it would be a great talk for us to bring to our Dysgraphia Life community. So we are glad to have you here today. If you have questions, go ahead and put them in the Q&A box and we will answer them at the end. And with that, I am going to let Samantha share her slides and take it away.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to share AI in writing with you all. It is a passion of mine, and I'm very excited to be here. All right, let's get this going. All right. As Jennifer mentioned, I'm Samantha Goldman, and we'll talk a little bit more about me in a second. But here's our agenda of what we're going to go over today. We're going to do a little bit of an introduction. I want to know a little bit about who you are. I'll tell you about who I am. We're going to talk a little bit about AI literacy, and then we're going to get into how AI can support the writing process. And then we're going to switch gears a little bit and look at how prompt engineering and writing are related. And then we're going to follow up with responsible use and how we use AI responsibly, or how we teach kids to use AI responsibly. So here's a little bit about me. I'm currently an assistant research professor at the University of Kansas. I also got my PhD there. Before that, I was a classroom teacher in California. I taught everything from transitional kindergarten through post-secondary in non-public schools, resource centers, special day classes, and I was a teacher coach. I went to Cal State Northridge for my undergrad, if you are familiar with the area. And I currently work on Project AI Score, which we'll talk about a little more, and with the writingclassroom.org, which we'll talk about in a little bit. And my passion is really, how do we help learners improve their outcomes in writing? So how do we help them share their ideas? How do we use technology to help them leverage it? And how do we really focus on their individualization and on their individual needs? And so on the bottom is my classroom when I was teaching, and I really like to share that I've always believed in individuality and trying to find ways to reach all learners. So while we get going, if you could share in the chat a little bit about you, where you're from, what your role is. Are you a parent? Are you a teacher? And then the target age group of either your class or your child, either how old they are or what grade they're in. I'll give you guys a couple minutes to drop that in. Malaysia, all right, student and a parent. Go ahead and keep dropping those in there, and we're going to get jumping on in. So writing is challenging. Writing is challenging for all learners, but specifically for students with disabilities. So when we're talking about writing, at the very start of writing, we have the blank page problem, right? So a student is given a writing task and they're staring at the blank page, and they knew everything they wanted to share, and now they have the assignment and their mind is blank. There's being able to activate that background knowledge, being able to bring in the source text and what they read and being able to share that out in writing. There's the mechanics and grammar, idea generation, forming sentences, capitalization, punctuation. Writing is overwhelming for every learner. There's a lot of pieces in it. And for struggling learners, writing is even more challenging. So today we're going to focus on how do we move beyond writing is hard to supporting learners with improving their writing outcomes by looking at how we can use AI as, I like to call it, the sidekick to your writing, rather than making it the villain. So a villain takes over It does it for you. It doesn't really do anything to improve the student writing. It just says, I'm going to do it for you. Versus the sidekick, where we're looking more at how can we leverage our students' ideas and use AI or other technology to help improve on those areas of need. So the question that we're going to kind of use to guide us today is how can we leverage the supports that AI offers to struggling writers to improve those writing outcomes rather than having AI do it for them. So in 3 words or less, share a little bit about what you're hoping to gain today. I want to make sure that everyone is getting what they were expecting out of this. So go ahead and share in the chat what you're hoping to gain. Direction, suggestion, strategies. Perfect. Love it. Yep. Better writing and critical thinking skills. Awesome. Keep dropping those in there. So before we get into the writing piece and integrating AI, it's really important that we start with AI literacy. And anytime we start to talk about AI and integrating AI into education, AI literacy should be at the forefront of that conversation. And with AI literacy, we're thinking critically about how we understand, evaluate, use, and ethically engage with AI. So there's lots of AI literacy frameworks out there. We're not going to really dig too deep into these today, but they all focus on that responsible use, safe use, effective use, ethical practices. When you get these slides, they're all hyperlinked here. There's more than just these frameworks out there. These are just some that I've liked. The most important thing, I think, when we're talking about using AI with students, using AI with special education, using AI in general, is that idea of personal identifiable information, that PII. We have all heard about not putting PII in AI, and what does that actually mean? So personally identifying information is anything that can be used to identify you. So it could be a passport number, a social security number, a name, a driver's license. I like to kind of I like to relate it to when the internet came out and you were talking to your grandparents about what you don't put in Google. Same rules apply here. So don't put your credit card number in the AI, don't put your address, don't put your social security number, and also respect students and not putting their information in there, keeping their information safe. There's a lot of federal regulations around that, so making sure that we're being responsible with our students' data. If you're interested in learning more about AI literacy, here's a couple resources. Flint is an AI tool. I just took their AI literacy certificate and I've done a bunch of them, and I will say that that one was incredibly impressive. It really does a great job at explaining what AI is, more than just how to use it as a tool. And then there's also some here for parents as well. So if you're looking as a parent to learn more about AI literacy, these resources are really great to help you. Which tools are you familiar with? So we're going to cover a lot of tools today. Go ahead and drop some in the chat that you're familiar with. We're going to cover a lot of tools today. I'm going to say most of them you probably haven't heard of, or we're going to look at how to use them in a different way, beyond just, opening up ChatGPT and putting in your essay or having it write the essay for you. Grammarly, speech to text, ChatGPT. Yeah, a lot of times we forget that speech to text and text to speech are AI based. Goblin, I love Goblin. We have that one. Grammarly is a good one too. You guys keep putting those in there. So when we're talking about AI, there's a lot going on there. Like I mentioned a couple minutes ago, speech to text, text to speech, Grammarly, predictive text, all of that is based in AI. So when we're talking about generative AI, Gemini, ChatGPT, Copilot, Claude, the stuff from November 2022 and beyond, there's a lot of requirements to use it. We got to know how to prompt effectively. We got to be able to iterate on our prompts. We got to know how to critically think about what we're putting into the system so that our ideas still stay centered. I like to think of these generative AI as going inside a box. And in education, we get them nicely gift wrapped. And these nicely gift wrapped AI help us to use the power of AI in a teacher and student friendly way. So here's some examples of various AI. Not all of them have to do with writing, but they're all some really great tools. Like Amy just said, you'll get this presentation, and they're all linked for you to check out. So let's talk a little bit about the writing process. We know that writing is not a one and done. We tend to think of it as linear in our heads, but it's really recursive. It's iterative. It goes in circles. You do the brainstorming, the drafting, the revising, you draft again, you brainstorm, you rewrite, you edit, round and round and round until you eventually get to publish. And even then, you might go back and do some more editing and make a second iteration of it. So what we're going to do is we're going to actually hop in and look at some tools directly with the writing process. We're going to explore some of them together. There are way more tools here than we'll actually get through. So we're going to look at probably one tool per each step of the writing process, and then we're going to hop into some more generative AI tools. So I'm going to actually exit this slideshow mode so we can do some demoing. So the first piece is brainstorming and planning. When we're looking at brainstorming and planning, there's a lot of pieces that go into it. If we're talking about any kind of informational writing, we have to activate background knowledge. We might need that self-regulation piece of a checklist, knowing what goes where. We might need help with mind maps. So there's several tools here. The first one we're going to look at is something called Idea Map. Idea Map is, if you ever use Kidspiration, it's very similar to that. It's a really great way to help students start to think about a topic. Now, I'm going to show you what this does, but first I need to delete a room. And we're going to go to home. You guys are blocking my, where's my new room? Sorry, everybody, my brain just stopped working. No. Try this again. Okay, so you give it a you give it a topic of what you want to focus on. So today we're going to focus on the Revolutionary War. This tool is really great for non-fictional writing because it's going to help us brainstorm, and it's not going to tell us anything we don't already know. If you're doing an opinion essay, it's really hard to get help with an opinion essay with a tool like this because the opinion is the student's ideas, and this is going to keep popping out, and we'll zoom in a second. It's going to keep popping out different topics to brainstorm on the Revolutionary War. I'm going to stop it, and we'll go ahead and zoom in. Come on. So big picture Revolutionary War. We got the causes, military campaigns, and the alliances. Now, this map is overwhelming. I would never give a student this tool and say, have at it. It's definitely something you want to work in collaboration with a student. And there's some other features that are going to help it make a little less visually stimulating. So you can actually hide, you can fold in, so you can get rid of those extra pieces. You can, maybe you don't know what the word catalyst is. You can hit the magic wand and you can transform the idea. You can shorten it, you can lengthen it, you can give it a better title, you can prompt it. And so I want to say, change the reading level. Probably should have given it a grade level. So it's going to give me, now it's simplified all the pieces that come out of that. I can also go ahead, and since this is nonfiction, I want to make sure that I'm giving my students the opportunity to confirm and research what is in this map. We never want to tell students that everything that's coming up in the AI is going to be 100% correct, just like we want to check our sources with a Google search. So what's really cool about this is you can actually attach a file or a sketch. So your student is using this as their map to get started, and now they're going to go out and start researching things, and they can attach the file to it so that when they come back to this to brainstorm and to move into the drafting stage, now they have their resource right there. The other tool, Aha Apple, is another one that's going to help you generate ideas from a prompt. Um, One that's really important for activating background knowledge is Notebook LM. Um, Nobody mentioned it in the chat, so I'm going to assume we haven't seen Notebook LM. What you do is you upload your sources into Notebook LM, and then it makes tons of different resources from this. So as a teacher or a parent, I can go in and say, okay, my students are studying the fall of Rome and the end of the Roman civilization. I'm going to go ahead and upload all the PDFs I have on this. I can put YouTube links, I can put website links in here. You obviously want to make sure you read through the material. You don't want to just dump it in here. And then it will create things for you. So I know I said that we were not going to use audio, but we're going to hope this works because we did not test it. Give me 1 second. Let me make sure I shared the audio. Oop, nope, it won't let me share sound. So it's going to make a podcast for you. I forgot that I needed to share sound. So we're going to just pretend, but it'll play a podcast for you. It'll also make for you a video with slides. So I didn't create any of these images.
Welcome to the Explain.
I don't know if you guys can hear that. But it's going to show you
Nor all the good military.
a video explanation of what the fall of the Roman Empire is. Now, for our kiddos that struggle with reading comprehension, that struggle with attention, that struggle with remembering topics, that struggle with print in general, this is a great way to take the information they're learning in class and transform it into a way that they can go back and review it over and over and over again. It's also great for that brainstorming piece. You can get a mind map of the material. You can get a timeline. All of this is free. So here's a timeline from the information I uploaded. It creates all the images on its own. It'll also do flashcards and quizzes. But it's a really great way to bring in that background knowledge. Something that's really hard for students is that source text, being able to read, comprehend, and then relate it to the topic. And so a tool like Notebook LM helps to kind of work around some of the reading comprehension challenges that go along with writing. Text generation and drafting is, I think, a hot topic for AI. A lot of people say, okay, well, they're using AI to write. They're just going to give it my essay prompt, and then it's going to pop out my draft, and the student's going to turn that in. Yes, but that's not what we're here to talk about. The students that are going to do that are hopefully far and few between, and really we're looking at how can we leverage these tools to improve outcomes for all students. AudioPen and Auditor are speech-to-text tools, which have been around for a while. But what's with these new ones that's really interesting is it will actually remove the ums, it'll remove the likes, it'll summarize, it'll help make the writing more cohesive, which when you're using speech-to-text can be really difficult because a lot of the time you're just talking rather than following an outline like when you might write. And so these tools can help you with that. We Will Write is a gamified writing tool to help students brainstorm and draft and then compete against others in their classroom to really work on explaining visuals in writing. It's a really fun one to play in the classroom. Editing and revising is another really challenging task for teachers and for parents, but especially for teachers, because when we're looking at editing, we're taking a lot of time to read, make corrections, and then conference with students. Edit GPT is a really awesome tool because what it does is you can drop in the essay and then, let's clear that. Drop in the essay and then you can actually say, I want you to edit for grammar, and it's going to go through and do track changes. Or I want you to improve it. So now when I meet with my student, I have a starting place to say, oh, they're really struggling with, this person struggling with maybe tenses. So I can have that conversation with my student in that small group or that writing workshop, where now I don't have to sit there, read it and edit and then talk to my student. I can quickly pull out for that writing conference and then later go in and read it in more in depth and have more quality feedback on what the students' words are actually saying. But it's a really fast way to get those edits in. Quillbot and Href also have editing tools. Something that's transformative about AI is the ability to get immediate feedback on writing. So when you are using tools like School AI or Flint or Brisk, students can actually see and interact with the AI to get immediate feedback and improve their writing rather than having to wait for the teacher or for the parent, right? When we're looking at a classroom, you are one of 30 students. Getting that individual feedback when you need it is really challenging. And we know that feedback works best when it's immediate, actionable, and timely. Same thing if you're working at home, maybe you're working on homework and a parent's working on something else. They might not be able to give you that immediate feedback right away. So these are some tools that can help with that. We're going to look at Snorkel is a really cool one. So you get a writing prompt, you put your words in, and then it'll actually go through and review it for you. So it'll generate some feedback for you. See, there's a question about student privacy and state and school standards. So most of the tools are going to have that FERPA seal, that COPA seal. The ones that don't, so like Edit GPT is actually not an educational tool. My recommendation is that it's not a tool for students to use. It's a tool for teachers to use, and you're not going to put any identifiable information in there. But as far as knowing all the state standards and the school standards, there's so many different requirements for each one. You're going to have to work with your tech director or your administrators to figure out if the tool aligns with what your school is looking for. So I put in an essay here. Here's the feedback it gives me from Snorkel. It's going to tell me if I'm right or wrong. It's going to give me a score, and then it's actually going to give me the ability to read aloud and listen to the feedback. AI Score, which as Jennifer mentioned earlier, is a project that I work on through the Office of Special Education Program projects. And it does writing progress monitoring and provides immediate feedback to students on their writing. The rubric was created by researchers. It's all informational writing. And we're really intentional about helping struggling writers. And so our feedback is not only actionable and timely and specific, it's also not overwhelming. So they can see their overall feedback, their content, organization, and style, and then they have the ability to write again. School AI and Magic School and Brisk and Flint have similar tools for writing and getting that feedback. School AI and Flint are more of a conversational tool versus Magic School and Snorkel and Brisk, which are going to give you that feedback at the end. There's also what I like to call multi-tools. These are tools that do a whole slew of things. They don't just do editing or revising. They do editing, brainstorming, revising. We're going to talk a little bit about Goblin. I know someone mentioned that they've used Goblin tools before. Goblin Tools does a lot for writing. So one of my favorite parts is this magic to do, which is going to actually create a checklist. Now, when we're talking about writing, it's really weird to think about, well, why would I need a checklist? There's a lot of steps to writing an essay. So if I say in my new item, I want to write a 5-paragraph essay about the Revolutionary War. The number of peppers is how spicy it is or how detailed it is. So if I want it really detailed, it's more peppers, less detailed, less peppers. So we're going to go here. I'm going to click the plus button, and then I'm going to hit the magic wand. And the magic wand is actually going to break down my to-do list and break down my task. So the first thing I need to do is identify the main topic of the essay, which is the Revolutionary War. Well, maybe I need more support than just that in my checklist. So I can go ahead and click the magic wand again, and it's going to continue to break down the item until I'm at a level that works for me. This is also great when we're talking about executive functioning. Maybe instead of having it specific to the essay topic, maybe you want to have it be about writing in general and the writing process and having students have that checklist for the writing process. Goblin Tools also has a formalizer that helps you change the tone of your writing. It helps you to explain things. It has there's something else it says that I liked. It helps you decide things. There's a lot of different pieces within here. My favorite is the to-do, but there's different pieces in here that can support with that writing process. When we're looking at publishing with AI, we're moving beyond that final draft. So before AI, the final draft, you would write, rewrite, revise, edit, the whole thing. And then at the very end, you would either write it out by hand in your nicest handwriting and hope you don't make a mistake, or type it out and print it and be done. With AI, we can do some really cool things with publishing that really make it feel like you accomplished a really cool task. As a student, having that ending point is a sense of satisfaction, and being able to do something more than just turn in a paper adds a certain layer to it. So Book Creator will actually take your writing and let you add images to it, make a little flip book. Napkin will take your writing and make graphic organizers. We're going to actually pull into, Canva will generate images for you. We're going to pull into Gemini Canvas. This is a tool that can be used for so many different things. We're going to talk about it for writing, but Canvas can do pretty much anything you can imagine. So we're going to go to Gemini. I'm going to show you how to get there, and then I have made some already for you to see. So here's our Gemini homepage. And if you click on Tools, you're going to create a canvas. And then you're going to type in your prompt. So what I did for mine was I gave it a story, and I said, I want you to turn this into a game. Now, there's a little bit of back and forth. It's not always perfect the first time. But here's my game based on my story about Buster. So I'm going to hit continue. And now Buster is going to chase the squirrel, and oh no, he lost his ball. Now he needs to find it. So now I get to go all around the park trying to find the ball. Is it there? Oops, only a candy wrapper. There's my ball. This aligns with the story the student wrote, but it makes it so much more fun. They're actually able to interact with their story. It can also help make interactive books. So again, same story of Buster the dog, but now it's going to add these pictures. So I can go to the next page. Here's the picture that goes along with it, and it turns it into a really cute book that students can then share with their friends or take home to share. If you click the little share button, you can share out that link. And again, you can use a podcast with Notebook LM once they're finished. So with the time we have left, which is about 25 minutes, we're going to pop into this idea of writing and prompting. Now, I gave you a whole bunch of tools that didn't use, other than those last two, that didn't use generative AI as like Copilot or ChatGPT. We're going to look at now is how AI and writing are related and how we can actually use those generative AI to improve writing outcomes. I know I'm not alone when I say I've put something into the AI and the output that came out was not what I wanted. I don't know where it got the output, but it wasn't what I asked for. And so part of AI literacy is being able to be a good prompter. And key skills for writing and key skills for prompting are related. So we know that in writing, it's important to be organized, have a good vocabulary, and be able to work through that iterative writing process of editing and revising. And those same skills are essential for prompting. Having an organized prompt, being able to describe something clearly in writing, and then being able to iterate on that prompt to improve it and provide feedback to the AI. So one way that we write good quality prompts is through prompt frameworks. There are many prompt frameworks out there. Here's a couple of them. The one on the right in the blue from AI for Education is one that I really like. It's called the 5S model. It's simple and it's easy and it's made for education. So when we're looking at mnemonics, we use them in writing all the time. We use graphic organizers to help us support our thinking. So here's an example of the STAR writing strategy. They help reduce cognitive load, they help with planning, they help manage our executive functioning, and they provide a structure. And we can use those same graphic organizers for prompting to help create an organized, logical prompt. So I took the 5S framework here and had my student draft what their prompt would look like. Now, we'll talk in a minute about why prompting and writing, or how prompting can be used for writing. But right now, we're going to just focus on overall the idea of writing and prompting. Something else we use a lot with writing is paragraph frames, and they can also be used to support prompting. So when we're looking at prompting, we can take that prompting framework and we can apply that fill in the blank or Mad Lib style prompting where students are going to write about what the scene is. They're going to write about what they want it to do. They're going to tell the AI who they are. They're going to tell them how they want the bullet points or how they want it outputted. And together, this is going to help them write a good prompt. Now, it can be overwhelming to type this over and over again. So maybe you have them keep it on like a note on their computer, if you're a Mac user, or in a Google Doc where they can pull that framework and copy paste it and fill in the blanks. Another option is if a student needs more support, instead of like in the bottom corner, instead of it saying set the scene, maybe you're going to give them guiding questions. So who should the AI be? What do you want? What is it going to be telling you about? What level should it write about? And how do you want the information? And then finally, the multiple choice option. Now there can be right or wrong here, or you can do it as a no error. What I like about this is either way you do it, it's going to come out with a different response. So I'm writing about animal and plant cells. Obviously, a biologist is going to give me the best answer, but it could be really interesting to see what an artist has to say. We're actually going to look at in a couple minutes how changing the different parts of the prompt can change the voice and audience of the writing and how it's a good way to model that to students. So when we're talking about supporting writing, like I just mentioned, voice and audience are really hard to teach. Your voice is very unique to you, but it also changes based on your situation. And the audience also changes, right? Sometimes you're writing for your friends. Sometimes you're writing for a formal audience. Sometimes you're writing for a comedy show. And all of that impacts the way you write. But it's a very challenging topic to teach because oftentimes we don't have models of the same text written over and over again for different audiences and using different voices. It involves perspective taking. We have to think about who am I talking to and how do I do that in a way that's going to be supportive to them. We have to make sure that our tone is appropriate for that situation. And we have to shift not just our words, but the overall meaning. There's a bit of code switching in there, and these images were made in Gemini, which makes some really cool infographics. Now, if I take that prompt framework, that set the scene is the voice. I'm telling the AI who I want it to be. I want it to be a biologist. I want it to be a mermaid. I want it to be an alien. I'm giving it a voice. I'm giving it that persona. And then simplify the language. I'm telling it who I want it to write for. Is it writing for 3-year-olds or is it writing for statisticians? Both of those things, as we change them, are going to change the output. But what's really special about AI is if we keep the topic the same, we're going to get the same information, but presented with a different voice and a different language. So what does that look like? I wanted to write about the water cycle. So in this example, I'm a hydrologist, which if you don't know this, is a person that specializes in the water cycle. Apparently, I had to Google that. But I want them to I wanted to make a technical report. I wanted to tell me like I'm a high-level executive and to use bullet points. So here's my executive summary of the water cycle. And it's written in a way that a high-level executive would want to read it. Sorry. And it is written by someone that's a very well-known, or that's very knowledgeable about the writing cycle, or the water cycle. Sorry, everybody. So I got my voice and my audience here. Now I can change the voice and the audience and how it's presented, and I'm going to get the same information, but shown to me in a different way. So now I'm an astronaut writing a business report. I'm sorry, the AI is an astronaut writing a business report, and it wants to talk to me, a mermaid, and it's going to give me the information in a rhyme. So now I can look at, okay, my voice I'm an astronaut. So how does that change what I'm saying? Well, I've got a planetary view to things. And as my audience being a mermaid, it's going to make it more relatable to me as a mermaid. Being able to show the same content in different ways makes it more tangible for students to understand what audience and voice actually are. Let's skip those. So now take a trip down memory lane with me. If you're a millennial, you might remember these things. It might bring back some joy to your heart. Why the Millennial Starter Kit? Because one really good way to look at prompt engineering and voice and audience is through the game MASH. You can take the game of MASH and use it to help students rewrite prompts to change the voice. Now you can do this by hand in the old-fashioned way, like it has up in the corner over here. Or I created what's called a gem, and a gem is through Gemini. So this gem is going to help you write through the prompt. So I'm going to start. And it's going to ask me, it's going to tell me a little bit about itself. And it's going to tell me if I want to learn more or if we're going to start the activity. We're going to start the activity. And it's going to walk me through the prompt framework. So start. Oops. It's going to walk me through the prompt framework, and it's going to do it twice. The first time it's going to do it, it's going to give me one idea. Why are you not working? What is happening here? It is stuck. It should be working. It's what live demos are always hard. Start activity. It's going to walk you through that prompt framework and work with you to change that. Okay, we're going to skip this because for some reason it does not want to do what it's supposed to do. But you're going to work through and change the voice. I'm going to figure out why this isn't working later. Gems are really great tools because you can make basically personalized tools that are designed to do a specific task. So if you want it to constantly edit for adding transition words, you can make a gem specialized in that. This will tell you more about how to make a gem. Something else that AI can do that we couldn't do without AI is help students develop descriptive language. When a student is writing a story and they're a struggling learner, a lot of the time the story uses really simple language. They were on a roller coaster. Okay, but that's not telling me anything about the roller coaster. I want to know more. I want to know about the color, the size, what it's doing. So if we use image generation, we can actually work with students to start to help them pull out their ideas to actually tell us what the image in their head is. So I did this with Copilot, and you can do this with other ones. But I said, create a picture of the roller coaster is fast. That was the sentence we started with. And there's the image. I would ask my student, hey, is this the image, or my child, is this the image you see in your head? Well, it's a wooden track. Okay, so we're going to have the image now made with a wooden track. Well, it's going downhill. So it's constantly iterating on the student's sentence until they get to the point that they say, okay, this is what I want. So they're going downhill, it's wooden, their hands are up, and they're looking scared. Samantha, how does this relate to writing? The final part you want to do is have the students work with the AI to write sentences that describe the image using only their words. So the AI took my words and now it expanded on my original sentence, which is the roller coaster is fast, and it added all these other details. They're kind of scattered, they're not well organized, but they're my words. So I could, at this point, start to work with students on transition words, combining sentences, but I have a more solid foundation for my roller coaster than I did originally. Take it one step further with the AI, and you can say, can you make it better, but use my words? So now it's starting to combine those sentences for me. Again, my words, my ideas, but the AI is helping me structure them. Using Gen AI for editing, don't play the video. There are several stems we can use when we're editing. These are designed for your higher level. I lost my lower level stems. When you get this slideshow, there will be lower level stems in here. But basically, when we're working with an AI, yeah, I can go into the AI and give it my essay and say, hey, rewrite this or edit this for me. But as a student or as a learner, I don't have control at that point, and the AI is just going to take over and do whatever it's going to do. And there's a possibility for me to lose my voice there. Instead, I want to give it specific prompts. This sounds too fancy. Can you make it sound more like people actually talk? This is for elementary school students. Can you make it so that the words aren't too hard for them? Can you show me where I need to improve? You can also use AI to write better prompts for you. So we talked about the importance of frameworks, but you can use the AI to actually help create a better prompt. So if you're a child and you're working on an essay about dogs, yeah, you could say, help me write my essay about dogs, but that's not telling the AI what you actually need help with. So if we work with our students and we say, okay, what are we challenged with? What do we actually need help with? Let's ask the AI to help us figure out what are some challenges. So maybe we're going to go to the AI and say, I'm having trouble with my essay about dogs. What should I think about? And it's going to pop out for us some ideas of, well, maybe we need to think about brainstorming. Maybe we need to think about details. Then they can say, okay, help me write a prompt for that. And the AI will actually help them write the prompt that's going to give them the output that they want. Now, when we're using AI, it's really important, again, that we have that superhero sidekick relationship, not the villain. AI is great to support with grammatical and mechanical edits. And it can also help with improving organization and style and content. But what we need to do is help students explicitly understand how that they can use the AI to support their writing rather than helping them or rather than doing it for them. And something that I think is important for us to think about is that if we don't teach students how to use AI effectively, they're going to go out into the world and compete against students who do know how to use AI effectively and who are able to do the iterative process of writing with an AI. If we don't teach that, we're going to get students that either have no idea how to write with AI and use AI, and they're just going to turn in or submit their writing without the support of AI. And if they turn it in as a cover letter, we know that we know that people that have more spelling and grammatical errors in their cover letters and resumes are less likely to get jobs, less likely to get that interview. And if they do get the interview, they're going to be paid less. So what we want to do is rather than telling students, no, you can't use the AI, it's focusing on how do we use AI to support their writing. So here's some ideas of how to help them with editing using the framework. So taking that same frame, you're a blank, help me blank so that it's blank. I want it to blank, give me it this way. So in this example, you're an expert writer. So the AI is putting on its writing hat. Rewrite this sentence. So I'm giving it a specific sentence and I want it to be clear and grammatically correct. Use my words though. Don't add anything else. AI is notorious for adding transformative and all sorts of weird words that people don't usually say. I wanted to use my words because I still want it to be my voice. And then I wanted to give me 5 sentences to choose from. I don't want it to just give me the writing. I still want to make that choice. Here's another example. Again, you're an expert writer. Here's my paragraph. Make it so it sounds better and makes sense. Oftentimes writing is scattered or has fragments or run-ons. Again, still use my voice and don't add anything. That's one of my favorite things to tell the AI. And then I wanted to go line by line, showing me my sentence, its recommendation, and why mine needs to be fixed. So I don't want it to just do it for me. I actually want to learn from the AI. I want it to guide me through this idea of refining and editing. Here's some examples that you can use when you're talking about editing. Ask the AI to reverse outline for you. So you give it your writing, and then you have it go through and make a reverse outline. Then talk to your child or your student and say, hey, is this what you were trying to say? This is what the AI thinks you were trying to say. This is what the message is. Is this the correct message? Help me figure out where I should put a citation. Make this more coherent. Fix the order, put it in the right order. Help me focus on sentence variety. How do you want your output? I really like tables that compare mine to the AI. I like to know why it's making the changes it's making. I like it to bold the changes so I can really quickly see what it's telling me I should do versus what I had. Give me a priority list. Top 3 things I should work on. If you ask the AI to tell you all the things that are wrong with your essay, it's going to go on and on and on. And even as a competent writer, that can be overwhelming. So being able to limit and say, what are the top 3 things that I need to work on helps to reduce the overload. One of the most important parts of using an AI is providing that feedback. So just like students need feedback on their writing, the AI needs feedback on its output. If we don't tell the AI immediately how it's doing and what we're expecting from it, we're going to get an output that's not expected. So this, I think it's hilarious. The scar's on the left, but the appendix is on the right. Uh-oh, I guess we need to try that again. But by the time that they've taken out the appendix, we're already way beyond being able to fix it. And so if we tell the AI as we go what it's doing well and what it needs to work on, we can refine the output so that at the end, we have something that we're looking for. Just like in writing, AI feedback needs to be timely, specific, actionable, and clear. Tell the AI what you want it to do, how you want it to do it, when you want it to do it. Responsible use relates back to that AI literacy comment at the beginning. When we're looking at responsible use, it's teaching students that AI is out there, it's not going away, and it's okay to use it to support their learning. But teaching them how to do it responsibly is super important, and it helps keep their voice active. So here's a simple checklist of using AI responsibly. So did you start with your own idea? Is your idea still in the essay? Do you understand every word in the essay? And does your essay address the assignment? Keeps the focus on the student's ideas and lets the AI be that sidekick. Lets the AI support the writing while keeping the student at the center. So here's an example of what it looks like. They went through, they highlighted their original, they highlighted the changes from the AI, they made sure they understood all the words in their response. This has been a problem before AI, right? If you think back to elementary school, maybe you would go to the thesaurus and add the biggest word, the longest word, so that your essay sounded so much better. Same problem still happens with AI. So making sure our students understand the words is really important when we're looking at using AI for writing. The AI trust extension is something that's interesting. It was shared with me at a conference recently. And what it does is it's a tool that teachers and students can use where teachers tell students what AI they're allowed to use and when they can use it. And then students go through at the very end and they reflect on how they used AI. Now, the tool doesn't do anything beyond just that reflection piece. It doesn't lock out other AI, it doesn't prevent them from using things, but it brings in that responsible and ethical use. So we're being honest with students and saying, hey, this is how I'm okay with you using it. And students are coming back and saying, this is how I used it. It's putting that accountability piece in there. Where do I find new AI? AI are constantly changing. There's new ones, old ones are being outdated or they disappear. Tools I'm showing you today might not work tomorrow. So being able to find tools is really important. Here are 2 options. The EdTech Insiders, which is a really great podcast, has what they call a market map. And the market map has tons of tools, tons of AI tools. It has a use case map and it tells you how to use them and they update it ever so often. And then some colleagues and I have put together a spreadsheet of our favorite tools for AI, and it's actually sorted by area. So math, reading, there's someone writing, and all of these are tools that you can use to support writing. So I stuck to my timeline, making sure that I gave you guys some time for questions. When you get this slideshow, there are tons of resources that we didn't get to go over today, but I can answer some questions now.
Thank you so much, Samantha. That was really great. I'm a little overloaded with information, but it's a
Wow.
fantastic. I'm going to need to go back and try out a number of those tools. Everyone, you can put your questions in the chat or in the Q&A, but I will kind of kick it off. One of the questions we get all the time about talk to text is kind of what age you start using it with your students. I feel like that question's relevant for a lot of these AI tools too. How soon do you recommend introducing tools? What does that look like kind of at different age ranges?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So I think that when we're looking at educational technology, something we need to think about is that while curriculum builds on top of each other, you don't need to do step A necessarily to get to step B. So I might be struggling with spelling and letter sound correspondence. Doesn't mean I don't work on those skills, but just because I struggle with spelling doesn't mean that I can't um, write the essay, or it doesn't mean that I don't have ideas to share. And so I think finding that balance between making sure that we're covering those skills while still giving students the opportunity to share their thoughts. A better example than writing is a little bit of a hard example for this, but a better example is if we're talking about, you mentioned text to speech. So if we're talking about reading, if a student's in fourth grade and their class is reading, I taught in California. So if their class is reading by the Great Horn Spoon, just because they're in fourth grade but they're decoding at the pre-K level, doesn't mean that they can't do the reading that the fourth graders are doing. That's when we bring in things like Bookshare. And that's when we bring in things like releveling text, which AI is really great at. Now, we don't forget about working on decoding because that's really an important skill also. But being able to say, yes, we're going to focus on letting you talk to your peers about Dogman because in fourth grade, Dogman is the thing that we talk about. So I need to find a way for you to access that while at the same time working on those earlier skills of decoding. So to answer your question, it depends on the student. It depends on what you're using, and it depends on the privacy and security and all those guidelines. Um, I used it with my elementary children to use speech to text because they had so much to share, but the act of the pencil was such a it was so hard for them that if they were asked to use the pencil, they would cry or they would refuse. But if you give them speech to text, now they're able to get all their ideas out. So I think it goes back to that balance, knowing your students and making sure that you're having time for both that skill development and still that grade level curriculum.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. And you got a shout out that yes, remediation and accommodation should coexist in the
Yes.
chat. So I think people seem to be in agreement with you. I guess a somewhat related question, but not really. I know many people are struggling with having their school districts allow these types of technologies. Do you have any advice, either for parents or teachers, on how to sort of advocate or be able to use them when maybe your school or your district is not quite up to these technologies quite yet?
So what we know is that there's really not a lot of guidance out there. More states are having guidance, but as far as school districts, buildings, being able to say yes AI or no AI is kind of where we're at in a lot of places, and figuring out what is AI and how do I use it is kind of secondary. And one of the reasons for that is there's a limited amount of training out there. AI experts, I don't want to say don't exist, but the generative AI has only been out for a couple years. So to be able to say, I'm an expert and I'm going to train you on doing this, and I'm going to teach you how to bring it into your school and do it at an affordable price, there's not that much out there. A lot of the AI tools are providing training in their tools, PD decks, AI literacy courses because of that. But I think my biggest recommendation is join the task force. at your district or in your state, and talk to people about AI. Explain that it's more than just Copilot or ChatGPT, and it's more than just this idea of cheating. Talk about the value of AI in students' lives. So I mentioned this earlier. If we don't teach students how to use AI, we're actually putting them at a disadvantage because other students are learning how to use it. AI literacy skills are a life skill. And so being able to talk about that with schools, having that conversation of, yes, generative AI can be scary, but we have these nice gift wrap AI. They do all these great things, making sure they align with your security measures and your privacy measures. A lot of them will have those COPA and FERPA seals on them. Or if you reach out to the tech companies, they'll tell you what their privacy policy is. A lot of the time they're small print and a lot of reading, so it's really nice to see those little symbols. But I would start with joining that task force or creating one if there isn't one.
Okay, great. I think sort of along the same lines around policies changing, we have a question that says, how do you teach children to save their work in order to defend their writing? Colleges are deciding what is reasonable, and these policies keep changing.
We were having a conversation about this before the webinar opened. So AI detectors don't work. There's no defensible way to say, yes, the AI detector is 100% accurate, or no, it isn't. And so thinking that you can stick something into an AI detector and figure out if it's AI, it's a myth. It doesn't work. There are some AI programs like, what was I using earlier? I think it might have been Snorkel, where it will tell you if something was pasted in or not, but that doesn't tell you if they used AI. It just tells you that they pasted it from somewhere else. So maybe they typed it in a Google Doc. When we're looking at AI in writing, AI in critical thinking, AI in sharing ideas, knowledge, expressing what you know, right? That's the purpose of writing, is being able to show what you know with someone that's not there. If the concern is how much did they do versus how much did the AI do, there's a couple ways you can handle that. First, you can have them share the chat that they had with the AI. So rather than saying no AI, use it as a learning experience. Have them share the AI chat, how they use the AI, and walk through the decision-making processes that they used. The other way is to think beyond writing, right? If the AI is helping me collect my ideas, sort my ideas, I don't necessarily need to get up and say, this was me, this is the AI, this is how you know it was me. Instead, I can bring us together, bring that superhero sidekick idea together, and change from something that's just written to showing my understanding and my knowledge beyond just that writing. So using it to help you create that podcast, using it to create that book, using it to create a rhyming song based on your ideas. I think the idea of creatively using AI and really transforming what education is versus what it could be, the potential with AI is really exciting.
I totally agree with that. And the last one submitted says, how do you limit the AI to be collaborative? For example, what do you think about teachers putting hidden prompts in white text in the assignments?
I'm a big advocate for relationship building and honesty and being upfront with students. So I'm going to teach my students how to use AI responsibly. I'm going to set my expectations for my students. And the 95% of them that are going to do what they should be doing and using things responsibly are the ones that I'm going to target. Kids have been cheating forever. Kids have been finding ways to skirt requirements forever, right? We used to pay, or not we, but there was that whole, I'm going to pay that kid to do my homework for me. Not everyone's paying the kid, but some people are, and that kid is probably making a decent amount of money. They're a little businessman. Then came the time where they could buy essays off the internet. So now we put that kid out of work, but we could buy essays off the internet. And now we can do it for free. So it's a more equitable way of cheating, if you will, because anyone can access these essays. But if we focus on the ones that are going to be doing the wrong thing instead of focusing on how do we help the ones that are going to do the right thing, then we're putting the ones that are going to do it correctly at a disadvantage. So the hidden prompts, the white text, I have a problem with that as far as that relationship piece. It feels like you don't trust your students. I understand why people do it, but I'd rather teach my students how to use the AI responsibly rather than trying to teach them to not, that I'm going to look to trick them.
Okay. Great. Well, we want to thank you for your time today. I know I learned a ton, especially even very simple tips. Like it hadn't occurred to me to tell the AI, to do it in your own words and to have my student do that. And I loved the picture generation, which I hadn't thought about either. Like what picture is this showing compared to if you add the detail worlds?
Yeah,
So I
there's
really think there's some even
yeah.
even with all the information, there's some easy takeaways that you can put into practice right now. And I really appreciate that. To everyone who's asking, we will have the video and the slides up on Dysgraphia Learn, so learn.dysgraphia.life in the next 7 days, so by next Thursday. And our next webinar is actually coming up very soon on May 21st, more quickly than normal, all about connecting structured phonics and writing approaches and how you connect them together to support students. So we want to thank Samantha so much for her time today. Everyone really learned a lot and we really appreciate it.